Well, hello and welcome to this, the third and final cigar of the current Cigar Professor Pack. As you can see, I am running the show tonight, and that means that Topher has done a no-show yet again. So all the times that I haven't been on the show, I'm actually starting to feel good because I think the number of times he's missing the show is greater than the number of times I have. But the person who's never missed the show still hasn't showed up yet, so we wait and see with bated breath whether this becomes the very first show that our diversity hire does not make it onto the show tonight. But, of course, I know you do not want to listen to me rambling on with a monologue, which is going to go off on absolutely some weird tangent at some point if I'm left to my own devices. So to help keep me under control, one of our subscribers and one of our former guests of this show, I am going to bring on Stuart. Hey, Stuart, how are you?
Good evening. Very well, thanks. And yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. I've
Excellent.
been racking my brains today. I mean, I really should have sat down and gone through all the paperwork. I can't remember the last time we had a Davidoff cigar in the Cigar Professor pack, except for pack 1, where we had the 3x3 by Davidoff. I don't recall us actually having a Davidoff cigar in any of the packs since then. We've had cigars that have been contract manufactured by Davidoff for other companies, but not one of Davidoff's own brands. So I thought, well, this would be a good way to finish off this pack, is actually to have something that is a little bit special. Iconic as well, Winston Churchill. Everybody definitely thinks of him and cigars. Funnily enough, he wasn't a Davidoff smoker, but Davidoff have decided to use that caricature and persona of Winston Churchill to promote their brands, and I think they've done a good job of it. But I've never had a bad Davidoff, ever.
This is an exceptional cigar.
Yeah, I have never had a bad one. Of all the different variations of Davidoff that I've ever had, I have never had a bad one. They are a very smooth, very easy smoking cigar. And I think that's one of the greatest appeals. It's a cigar that will suit anyone in any occasion. You know, like some cigars, they're really light and they're quite gentle, and they're sort of like, they're the morning cigar, and you've got other cigars that are really heavy, and that's the sort of thing you want after a big heavy steak meal at night time, or things like that. And you've got cigars for different occasions, where Davidoff really seems to be one of those cigars that is just for all people at all times for every occasion. And it is something that you can just grab a Davidoff cigar and know that you're going to enjoy it. And we wait to see if that is going to be the case for tonight. So how's your day been?
Not too bad. Bit of butcher shopping. Filled the fridge with nice big porterhouse and a big bag of bacon, and stocked up with something for tonight, which is my Kilkenny Irish Ale, and that is my beverage for tonight. And besides that, it's been a good day.
Well, speaking of beverages, I've got a black Earl Grey tea. I was sort of thinking that something a little bit lighter, a little bit more floral would pair with the lightness that Davidoffs often have. And rather than going for one of my normal sodas, I've gone down the path of some fizzy bin juice for tonight. But it is pink grapefruit fizzy bin juice. So
where's Topher now?
Yeah, look, I mean, I like grapefruit, so I'm hoping it works out well for tonight. But anyway,
I'm ashamed to say I've actually had it, and it is really, really nice. It's like the bottle, just the bottom of the bottle seems to come up too soon. So yeah, I think you're in for a good drink.
I'm just trying to. That's right in front of my nose. My cutter.
Yes.
I'm just going to do a great cut this tonight. Being a torpedo, it may
You give it a
require a
couple?
second cut. Yeah, look, often with torpedoes, I find you do one cut, not enough to do a second cut. We'll see how this goes. I've got the Perdomo Perfect Cutter, but the interesting thing is some Perfect Cutters, like the one that we sent out as a freebie, had a little hole
Which is
in
this
the back.
one?
That is correct, and the benefit of that hole is you can actually stick the tip of the torpedo into the hole and just nick off that little bit extra. So whereas this one doesn't have that hole, so I'll probably end up having to take without a
Well,
a
actually,
doubt,
just to disappoint you, this one doesn't have the hole in the back either.
Oh, well, there we go. I've done two. Two's enough.
This one's not bad.
If I need to, I can take the third one a little bit later, but I think I'd rather just light it up. I do prefer my cigars a little bit more on the snug side. Hey, Richard. Thank you for joining us from WA.
It's got a nice stogie too, by the look of it.
What that means, it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's definitely knock-off smoko time over there at the moment. So thanks for joining us with that. Well, you know what? I was optimistic that this could have been the very, very first show.
Oh, no, he isn't, has he?
Hire didn't turn up. But I wouldn't say to my surprise, maybe to my disappointment, there has been someone turn up in the what they call the back room or the green room of our online streaming, backstage area. And I don't think I really need to give any introduction, although he's actually just walked off screen. So maybe it's the perfect time to actually bring him on when he's actually not there. So, I mean, look at that. Omar has never looked as good as that. That is just phenomenal.
I think he's trimmed his beard.
I know. I think so too. He's definitely done something with his hair and.
Hopefully he's going to get a fedora, because then we've got 3 beards, 3 fedoras.
Yes, or at least something to cover the mug of his. So
the shiny bit, yeah.
Well, Richard, I'm glad you mentioned Zeno, because I'm going to be talking about a Zeno cigar later tonight in the show as well. So there we go. Well, having gone back to my usual roots, Toph is not here and he thinks that I'm not the Perdomo fanboy. I use my Perdomo cutter. I'm about to use my Perdomo jet lighter. And just to be sure, I am...
And you're wearing the trifecta.
Yes, that's right. So no one can accuse me of, having totally turned my back on Uncle Nick. So...
Actually, it's just starting to get dark here. I might stick my lamp on. Because otherwise I will fade away. Which, I don't know, that's probably a good thing.
Well, it's very biscuity right off the light up. Very, very smooth. It's definitely reminding me of biscuit bakery type flavour notes there.
Did a little bit of a read up on what to expect from it. Some reckon some sugary and licorice, although I think this is my 4th one. I don't recall having experienced that, but a creamy oak, which is one of my favourite experiences with a cigar. And I think this will definitely have that, won't it?
It's a little dry, but not sort of like cotton wool in the mouth. It's sort of almost like a savoury dryness to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not sure that was a better look, Omar.
Showing us your package, Omar.
You gotta show these things, don't you?
Wrong cigar.
Yeah. You gotta have that cigar every now and then, don't you, boys?
Yes.
I got stuck on the M5, obviously, and I just got home. Smashed a couple of bananas. Whew.
You could have just come here instead.
Oh, I know. But I didn't have the cigar on me, so.
Well, I would have given you one.
I know you would, but why take advantage of a mate? You know, unless
That's
it's...
what mates are for, isn't it?
I know. What's going on, boys?
Well,
Richard just chimed in. He shared it to both the groups, so thank you very much, Richard, for that. Actually, I like the photo that you've got there as your profile photo. If you don't mind me asking, what cigar is that one in your profile photo? Always interested to know what people are smoking.
You don't want to know everything they smoke. I'll let you read the cigar.
Well, you missed the start of the show, Omar. Topher's done a no-show.
Oh, what's...
I'm starting to feel as though the number of shows he's missing is getting greater than the number of shows I've missed.
Oh, way more.
And needless to say, both of us have missed more shows than you have. So,
oh man, let's just not even go there, right?
I'll put him in the boot of the car.
Wedding, overseas trip, sick as a dog, literally.
Mate, that like, look, I took my hat off last month for you. Look at this. I'm taking my hat off for you again, Omar. I cannot believe that you made last month's show. When I spoke to you about an hour before the show, you were so sick you couldn't barely even speak to me on the phone.
But I went to this pharmacy, as you know. They give you all kind of bad things in the Middle East. There's nothing you cannot get, literally. So I drugged myself up, and I thought, you know what, we got to do this.
Right.
Bribe a security guard.
Look at this. Look at this devotion. He even goes and takes drugs just to, he's taking his uppers just to get on the show.
Honestly,
so.
It's a hard life.
It literally is. I've been doing a lot of soft light ups with the matches. It's been a while for me.
Yeah. Look, it's nice to mix it up. You sort of go through seasons. And I've been doing a fair bit of light ups with cedar splints of recent as well. And it's just sometimes nice for a change. Nothing wrong with it. This is the thing about cigar smoking. Fundamentally, there's probably a few things that you shouldn't do. But at the end of the day, it's really about what you enjoy and what makes it enjoyable for you. And that's what you want to do. So
it's all part of the experience.
Exactly. And it's learning. I mean, you got to try things to learn whether things are good or bad. And sometimes you learn that they're no good and you never repeat them again. So, like lighting a cigar with a firework is not a good option. It gives it a really sulfurous sewer gas smell to the cigar for a little while. So, there's some things you learn.
Yeah, but them didn't saying that. Like, each to their own, and there's not a right or wrong answer to that. But I would say that I'm a traditionalist, and probably Stu knows this too. I'm a traditionalist, and I would love to go back to the basics and traditions. And there's nothing like cedar and a matchstick, It's so very pleasurable, I mean, lighter is good. Like, you sitting outdoors and you can't use anything else. The lighter is great. The jet lighter is great. But I think that's where the game is.
Well, talking about this cigar, as we've already mentioned, it is the Davidoff Winston Churchill in a Belicoso size. Now, Belicoso is a 4.5-inch long by 46-inch ring gauge. They come in nice little white tins of 4, just a bit larger than the Purito size that we've been used to smoking in the past with the Perdomos and a few other similar sized Puritos in the past. So they're just a tad wider than that. Now, the interesting thing is Davidoff, all their manufacturing is in the Dominican Republic. But with this particular cigar, it actually has an Ecuadorian wrapper with a Peruvian binder and all Dominican filler. So nice. quite an interesting combination. I don't know if we've actually had a Peruvian tobacco before in any of the cigars from memory. So
I think we might have had binders. I'm not 100% sure, but it's Peruvian rings a bell in terms of the binder. But as I said, not 100% sure. What about the cigar? Needless to say, it's a pleasure to have a Davidoff. They are at the top of their game when it comes to cigar rolling, and they call it a when the cigar rollers and cigar makers they describe burn time, they say, oh, it's an hour or 90 minutes. They categorize as pleasure time. So that's a beautiful way of describing, they
yeah.
say it's pleasure time. So I totally agree. The pleasure time with Davidoffs are always amazing. It's never not great. It's always great.
Well, in my little spiel at the start of the show, I was telling our viewers that I've never had a bad Davidoff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the Davidoff is almost, I would dare argue, is almost the perfect universal cigar.
Yeah.
It's the cigar that suits the newbie right through to the experienced, and it is the cigar that's good for the morning, it's good for the afternoon, and it's good for the evening. It's good for a cigar when you want to walk around and have exercise and what I call cigar size. It's also good for when you're at a wedding. It's good for when you're having a herf with mates. Like, honestly, it's one of those very, very few cigars that are out there that you could just have anytime, all the time.
Absolutely. I think as you said, it kind of covers a whole lot of different areas of cigar smoking. And I would say lately I've smoked a bunch of cigars. Some cigars as great as the man Damo himself hooked me up with Year of Tiger, and great cigars. There's absolutely no doubt they're phenomenal cigars. But lately, and I put a disclaimer out, it's not my bias or anything. Their best cigar that I've had, it's Davidoff Nicaragua. And I don't know if you guys have experience with that or not. But Davidoff Nicaragua, and I said, why do I like Davidoff Nicaragua so much? And I figured out that it's actually 100% grown by Plasencia family.
Right.
Part of that is their regenerative organic tobacco in it, and I think they do undercover rolling for Davidoff Nicaragua as well. So it has been on the top of my list. Of course, Dame introduced me to Late Hour, I must admit, and that is an absolutely banger of a cigar as well.
Very expensive cigar too.
There's nothing cheap when it comes to Davidoff or cigars.
No, nothing cheap when it comes to Davidoff. They definitely know how to charge a premium, but at the end of the day, as I said already, I haven't had a bad one ever.
No.
I've never had one that I can't smoke. I've never had one that I haven't enjoyed. So,
which
is it worth it? I mean, I guess that's everyone. It comes down to everyone's personal choice and preference. But I've had a few of these in the last 6 months that we've had them in storage, and I've enjoyed every single one.
I agree.
But saying that with utmost honesty and being rational at the same time, when was the last time you had a bad cigar at Cigar Professor? So,
I've had a few that I've had to wrestle with, which is
standard cigar. That's a cigar thing.
There's not going to be a cigar smoker on the face of the planet that doesn't smoke cigars somewhat regularly and will get away with not having to encounter that dreaded cigar, because they are handmade and they are 100% natural product. There's natural variation. You can't control the quality. It's not an industrialized, synthetic manufactured product. So
the question is, what you got in the bag for the next Cigar Professor pack? So I think it's about time for you.
Well, funny. Look, I've already mentioned this, and we know that Zeno is one of the Davidoff brands, and earlier in the show, Richard mentioned that he just had a Xeno cigar. And so I just feel like I'm going to do the teaser for the next pack.
Yeah, why not?
I'll just show the first cigar. Everyone's going to have to keep watching so they find out what the rest of them are. But in the next pack, the Xeno Platinum Scepter in Robusto size.
Beautiful.
That is manufactured by Davidoff.
Beautiful. Xeno Platinums. I didn't have that specific Vitola, but it's an absolute beautiful cigar. And I think it appears to be a strong cigar, but it's so very mild and flavorsome. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, we've had the Xeno Platinum Scepter in a extra small size cigar, which from memory, I can't remember how small it was. I think it was about a 30 odd ring gauge, 35 ring gauge or 36, something like that, in one of the packs.
Yeah.
When we were doing 13 cigar packs.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And the reason we put that one in was because we needed a 13th cigar, but also because of the budgets that we were balancing and the other cigars in the pack, we just needed something small, and that was the one that we chose to go in that pack. So now, all these years down the track, we're going to come back to the same brand, the same approximate blend, obviously because the filler to wrapper and binder ratio changes, and see how it goes as a Robusto size.
And I'm sure it'll be a beautiful cigar. Since when does vape and cigarette smokers want to talk about cigars? What the fuck's going on here? Talk about a little, man. Come on. We'll let you talk about cigars. That's good enough for you, Dan. What do you reckon?
Well, I guess the big news that's, I guess, for the cigar world at the moment, for Australia at least, is we're only a few days away from the 1st of March. And on the 1st of March, taxes on tobacco is going up 6.5%, and also alcohol tax is going up 6.5% on the 1st of March.
So it's worried about the alcohol tax, but I'm really worried about the cigar tax. Like the way it's going up and up and up and up and up. You wonder where the heck's going to stop. Someone's going to knock some sense into these people, man. Seriously.
Well, let me just work that out for you. That is another $148.20 a kilo going on to the cost of tobacco.
That is crazy. And that is crazy. So, that's absolutely crazy.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. Wow. Like, and not only that, James, you know what else has been happening in the past year? The actual price of cigars without even the tax thing has gone up by 20%. That's worldwide. That's just worldwide. Yeah, it's yeah, Steve, I totally vibe that cigar, man. It's an absolute beauty. Anniversario, oh man. I had one circa 2011, their special edition of that. It was just absolutely beautiful.
Well, this is true, Stephen. Without a doubt, it is definitely increasing the value of your collection. The only negative point that I have personally found with cigars is not all cigars are great for aging. Some cigars start to mute their flavors on the aging process.
Especially the lighter Connecticut's.
Yeah. But one of the ways to get around that is to actually intermingle your Connecticut's in amongst some dark cigars like Maduros and Oscuros. You get some cross-pollination going on, which gives you some really unique flavors that you'll never get anywhere else ever again, and just makes it all the much better. Look, don't disagree with you, Dan. Don't disagree. This is the drum that Topher has been banging since day one of our show. I I think the only way that it's actually going to have any effect is if they take it from the angle that it's going to reduce the gang crime activity. I think if they go at it from it's an excessive tax, it's just way too high, that's not going to cut the mustard. But if they can articulate a very good argument and perhaps even get the police to side with them on the basis that the exorbitant cost of tobacco is what's driving the crime, and have the police basically agree to that precept, perhaps then the politicians will listen to the police saying that in order to then get the costs down to make it no longer a financially viable criminal activity.
You know, then what really it's annoying about the whole thing is, like, you don't, like, you know, it's like getting the police, and it's a known fact. All you have to do is basic statistical data. I'll show you a bit of statistics. After they look at the graph of tobacco tax going up, illicit tobacco smuggling is going up, right?
Yeah.
How much money to spend in that to counter that, you know, versus jail terms, costs on the legal system, and you still got tobacco, you know, smuggled tobacco, illegal tobacco in the country. So it's not rocket science. It's the intent, and I don't think politicians have that intent. They don't have that intent. No one cares. I mean, you have one odd voice that might say something like that, but if I put it in a more educated language, like more sophisticated language, they don't give a fuck, or I may add, they don't give a flying fuck about that.
How are we going with the ash?
It's holding well. They're holding real well. Whoa.
I spoke too soon.
Yeah.
Just did a toper.
Yeah.
Bit of cinnamon.
Yeah, it's about time we got to
talk about. And a very, very, I'm getting a very, very faint, soft ginger. Just that, you sort of, you know, that nice little warm spice, not to the point of burning, but you know how ginger's got like a peppery bite to it. If you could just imagine a very, very subtle. Actually, you know what it does remind me a little bit. You know that ginger tea that I had with you the other day.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, that really, really diluted down ginger flavor.
Oh, interesting.
I think my ash is about to drop as well.
Yeah, same. Mine's dropping too. Hey, my cigar is burning a bit quicker than you guys do, folks.
Is it windy where you are?
I think I light up a couple of minutes after you did, but I don't know if I'm because I'm outdoors or something, but it's burning real fast. But nonetheless, I usually win that ash comp anyway. Nothing new.
There's a little bit of,
unless you're Daniel and just very careful.
Yeah. We don't do girly things, you and I.
Yeah. Well, look, I do remember the times that I'm smoking it like this, you know. So, you know, just a little bit of soft leather coming through now that ash has dropped. Still very much the same as the light up, just a little bit more spice, sort of that baked spice. So that's gone from more of a soft plain biscuit to sort of almost like a spiced biscuit note there. Sort of maybe like a little bit like a sort of a Christmassy cookie sort of flavor notes, cinnamon, ginger. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of the light up, Dames?
It was a very smooth, very pleasant light up. straight away. It just reminded me like biting into a biscuit of some description.
The ginger flavor that you're talking about, I kind of got that, but it's so very mild. It's so very gentle and mild.
Yep.
Underneath, the cedar and the leather, I think that's a main genre here. Bit of cedar, bit of leather. Very nice though. Very nice though.
It'll be interesting to see what the burn time on this is because, according
Yeah.
to Dave, it's a 20-minute smoke. But you'd have to be going on it pretty hard and fast to get through it in 20 minutes, I reckon.
Nah, you gotta be going real fast for sure. For sure.
Would you say, from your experience of traveling around the world, Omar,
Yeah.
and meeting different cigar people,
Yeah.
do Australians smoke their cigars slower than other countries?
Look, the challenge with the Australian cigar community is it's our population is very small, but the actual community is so small. And I was giving you this example about Switzerland. I walked out of my hotel too, and as I walk out, am I smelling cigar? I looked and I actually could smell cigars. I walked four like I don't know 4 yards further up. There's more cigar. As I go another 20 yards up, there's someone else's. It's like constantly someone smoking cigars. So the sample size we got in Australia is very little, but I think, generally speaking, I think we probably smoke quicker than the Europeans for sure. I think Americans are more like Aussies. The American cigar smokers, the bigger and thicker and bigger cigars is the thing in America. That's what actually the New World cigars became bigger. Whereas in Cuban cigars used to be very small, your Lanceros and all those things. So I think going with the same sort of thing, they, U.S. and America, mostly America, I don't know about Canada, but Australians smoke slightly quicker than the Europeans and what I've seen in the Middle East. Oh my God. What is this guy talking about? Like, seriously.
Well, look, I'll let you in on a secret, Dan. I reckon Omar's getting a bit soft in his old age. Because the last few times I've had cigars with Omar, I've outsmoked him.
Yeah.
But that being said, he keeps putting his cigar down and going off and doing stuff for 10 minutes, then coming back. So, I'm sitting there smoking by myself.
Yeah.
So.
But then I do smoke slightly, but today it's going a bit fast. And as you can see, the ash is still holding up real well.
It's probably the quickest for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Stu and I are almost the same sort of way.
So this isn't a definitive indicator for smoking a cigar, but when the ash drops, if it's nice and flat or relatively flat, you're smoking at a good speed. If you actually get a pointy bit sticking out, that's usually an indicator that you're smoking too fast. Yeah. And if you've actually got a bit of a divot going in, you're actually smoking a little bit too slow. Yes, so right. It's not always the case. I've had cigars that break the rules, but generally speaking, I have noticed that pattern more often than not.
100%. I think I also.
So mine's a bit quick, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit quick, and I think it's more pronounced in a bigger ring gauge versus the smaller ring gauge. The bigger the ring gauge, you're more likely to find that out.
I think I might have just come across that licorice aniseed note you were talking about early, Stu. It's definitely
yep.
Something there. Just that last puff, there was just something a little bit different.
On the draw?
Yeah.
See how good is a burn on this thing? Like razor sharp. Razor. What about the ash, James? What do you have to say about the ash? How perfect is it?
Yeah.
Holds it.
And that's also another thing
together.
that people use to gauge how they're smoking a cigar too, is consistent looking ash, but it's consistently looking the same through the whole process. That you've got these nice little wavy wafers of layers of ash there, evenly spaced, and the color is uniform as well.
Yeah.
And that's also indication of a well constructed cigar, not just solely the habit of the smoker.
Yeah. Totally. So what's the next Caesar, James? You're halfway through the cigar, at least.
Yeah.
What do you got for us in the bag?
Well, the next cigar in the pack, so we've got a Robusto.
Yes.
We've been getting into some of the bigger cigars these last few packs. Now that we're doing 3 packs instead of 13,
Yeah.
we've got a little bit more flexibility on putting money into bigger sticks that we couldn't justify in the bigger packs. So this one's actually been aging for well over a year. I bought it quite a while ago, and it's actually starting to get a little bit of color to the wrapper, not a lot, but this is the next one. It is the CAO BX3.
BX3.
So this one is known as being a little bit more on the full-bodied side, a strong cigar. But the reason they call it a BX3 is it's Brazilian times 3. So
wow.
What that means is that it's a Brazilian puro. Basically, the wrapper, the binder, and the filler is all Brazilian.
Never had a Brazilian puro before.
We haven't had a Brazilian puro, so that was one of the reasons I actually purchased that particular cigar, was because I thought, well, we've had Dominican puros, we've had Honduran puros, we've had Ecuadorian puros, Nicaraguan puros.
Yeah.
Let's have a go at. We've had Brazilian tobacco in previous cigars that we've had, so I thought it would be really interesting to see what is it like to have a cigar that is just all Brazilian tobacco.
Yes, indeed.
So that's a Toro size. I'll just hold it up. That's actually not. It's only a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a bit fatter as well.
Yeah. Bigger ring gauge.
Yep. So that will be an interesting one. I'm hoping it's not too strong for David Leinhelm, but
just draw my ash.
We do need to challenge him from time to time.
All over, that is.
Look, the band on this cigar is so loose, just slides straight off. No effort whatsoever. Perfectly applied.
Been a couple of cigars where I've gone to slide it off and it's got underneath the wrapper. So now I try and peel them just in case.
Actually, one of the tricks that I do for that is you actually look at which way the wrapper leaf has been rolled on to the cigar, and you actually twist it in the same direction as you slide it back, and that you not often. Yeah, sometimes I still damage it, but more often than not, you can sort of get over that little layer of the wrapper when you do it that way. So,
yeah.
Speaking of damage, I think Topa touched on something last month, where the ones that I've been smoking fairly quickly after getting them have all been perfect in their construction. I haven't had any dramas, and perhaps my storage that could be the problem. And living here where it's can be quite damp, and perhaps most of the time it's cooler rather than warmer. And I'm about to make a really big order of cigars, and I'm thinking to look after them. I might have to invest in a good humidor, and I'm thinking of going an electric one and spending a few grand and get probably, I don't know, between 400 and 700 count humidor. We don't have many in Australia, and they're about about $5,000, $6,000. What do you reckon on that? Because that way they keep the temperature and they keep the humidity.
So, not having needed a humidor that meets those requirements for where I am, I'm fortunate that my environment is stable enough that we haven't had to deal with that. Basically, from what I've seen other people with electric cooling humidors, is that you want one that can both heat and cool, not just cool.
Yep.
Maintain a constant temperature. One of the problems that you do have with those, though, is that trying to keep a stable humidity is quite difficult, because when you cool air down, the moisture will tend to drop out.
Yeah.
And so some of the better electric humidors will actually run the condensation back down into the evaporator and actually to rehumidify it back into the cigar, so you're not constantly losing all the moisture out of your cigars. That being said,
so they've got the tray underneath.
They've got a tray where the moisture that condenses on the coils at the back drips down into the tray, and in the back they've actually got a slight warmth at the bottom. So the warming comes from the bottom, the cooling comes from the top, and it allows the humidity to be recycled. Yeah. I would definitely say, if you get one of those style of humidors, keep your Cuban cigars out of it, because you're guaranteed to get mold. I've never encountered Cuban cigars which haven't molded up when the humidity has been an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
But one of the other things you might want to try doing is actually, rather than going to that expense, if you've got some cigars you can try before you go to that level of expense, is to try dry boxing your cigars before you smoke them. So you think, okay, tomorrow I'm going to have this cigar or that cigar. Pull the cigar out and use an old, empty cigar box that hasn't been kept in a humidor.
Yeah, got them.
Put your cigar in there, shut the lid, leave it for 24 hours, and that will actually bring it more to room temperature compared to the bulk of your cigars, and also it will drop the humidity in there slightly, and that might improve your smokability. So there's a lot of guys that do believe in dry boxing. I had a cigar, actually I think it was Saturday with you, wasn't it, Omar? I think I suggested it would have been better having dry boxed it, because it had been buried at the very bottom of my humidor. And obviously moist air is heavier. It tends to sit in the bottom of the humidor, and this was buried at the bottom and had been there for years. And I think if I had my time again, I probably would have dry boxed it at least for a few hours. Another option I sometimes do for the show is I'll be setting up for the show 1 to 2 hours ahead of time before the show goes live. Sometimes I'll pull a cigar out that I think might need dry boxing and just let it sit in the cellophane wrapper on the desk while I'm getting everything else ready. So by the time I get to showtime, it's just dropped in humidity a little bit and equalized a little bit more with the temperature.
Yeah.
So that could be a cheaper option for you. One of the other things you could look at is a very heavy wooden humidor, where you've actually got maybe 2-inch thick wood all around. So you've still got your cedar lining on the inside of it, but the rest of it might be made of something else like oak or whatever. But a really thick, large volume of wood also tends to help in maintaining temperature stability and humidity control a lot better than some of the smaller, lighter ones that you. So my premium humidor, which has got most of my top end cigars in it, I think it holds about 200 cigars, and the lid's about that thick, and the walls are all about that thick all the way around it. I don't know what it weighs empty, but probably weighs 12, 15 kilos empty. So,
right. Yeah. I was looking at the Remingtons. They like you can get them in cherry and black, and they're all the timbers, ornate and everything with the glass front and temperature and humidity controlled. You can get them, I think 600 or 700, and then 1,200 high. But I'm thinking the price of cigars in Australia, I don't know that I'll ever fill a 1,200 count. And then you've got the other ones that look like fridges, like wine type ones that they've converted.
So within the Cigar Professor, one of the storage cabinets that we use for less than box quantities or less than large bundle wrapped packs, all the individuals and some of the more high-end cigars that we have, I've basically got an old wine fridge, but I don't plug it in and don't use it. It's just a wine fridge with the door shut on it, and that provides a good thermal insulation, because fridges are effectively just an esky. And that's another thing a lot of people use too, is they call, in America they call them cooler doors. They basically just use an esky to store their boxes of cigars in. So you leave your cigars in the boxes that they come in, and you put the box in an esky and put your humidity packs in there, and you've got sort of the wood of the boxes keeping the cigars, and then you've got the esky maintaining the temperature and the humidity for you.
You just put that big Boveda packs in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably the sealed, the eskies that actually seal, they are very, very effective. I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're probably more effective than any humidor. They're not glorified because it doesn't look fantastic to the eye, but I think a good quality or cooler box, whatever you want to call that, I think it probably is the best option in my eyes. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure.
Especially if you get one of the coolers that got like the clamps that clamp the lid down.
They have a rubber
like an angle.
Well, they have a seal, rubber seal.
Yeah, so they've got a gasket around it, and then got something that pulls the lid down to push the gasket in tight. Airtight. Interesting thing. My really good humidor, it's actually got a double tongue and groove in the lid that locks the lid into the side of it. I have not changed the Boveda pack in there since I got it, and I got that in the Christmas 2016. The pack is probably down to
so
about...
my Tupperdoors that I was using before.
Yep.
Yeah, the Tupperdoors that I was using before, I've just thrown out a big handful of Bovedas because they've crystallized. So I'm thinking that they haven't been sealing as good as what I imagined they should.
Yeah, and look, we use Tupperdoors within the business as well, and it's definitely the case that the Boveda packs on those do shrink down quicker than what they do on my big timber one. But I don't, with my timber humidor, I don't put any cigars that are not properly humidified in there. And because it seals so tight, and because it's my premium end range, I'm not opening it on a regular basis. I'm only opening it on special occasions. The humidity in that is just perfect. Like I couldn't ask for a better humidor. It was a gift given to me by the gentleman that introduced me to cigars. I don't know what it cost, but I do know that it isn't a base model. It was a bespoke handmade humidor by some really famous humidor maker in America, and his humidors start at $2,500 US. Well, that was back in 2016 when I got it, and this was probably twice the size of his base model humidors that he was talking about, and the base models that are done are not they're just generically plain. This has actually had inlays in it. They've actually cut out timber with my name on it and inlaid the timber into it. They've actually put different timber trims around the edges and a border and all sorts of things. So a lot of work has gone into this humidor. Absolutely gorgeous. But
Also,
Nice.
sorry, go Stu.
Stephen's just got a really good question here and asking us about how long we can age Connecticut's versus Habano versus Maduro. Interesting. I definitely will give you an update on that on our next show, Stephen. I've got some Nub 354 Connecticut's that I purchased in 2017 that have been in that humidor. Now, they're slowly being whittled down. I bought a box of 24 and I think I'm down to maybe 6 or 8 left in there. But at some point in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to get one of those out and actually see how well it's aged. But I would say my personal experience, and this is just an average rule of thumb, it doesn't apply to every cigar, but just a good rule of thumb, is that I think Connecticut's are good for between 3 to 5 years before you start noticing the diminishing effects of overaging. Now, that doesn't mean that they're a bad smoke. What it does mean is that a lot of the nuances, a lot of the uniqueness of a cigar that defines that Connecticut from another one tend to mute out, and the flavors through the cigar don't tend to change as much through the smoking. So, when you're smoking through and you get those flavor changes, they don't tend to be as bold, as predominant, and it seems to be a little bit the same from start to finish. That's been my personal experience on Connecticut's. Maduros and Habanos, was it a Habano that we smoked that was 15 years old that we put in one of the packs a while back?
Habanos, I think there's a small little thing that I would point out. Habanos means a type of tobacco. And if he means by Habanos natural, that means sun-grown or natural, what you're going to call that. It is almost very close to Maduro's. And again, Maduro has an origin too, by the way. So that's another thing that people don't realize. Maduro necessarily doesn't mean the origin of the or genealogy of the leaf, but rule of thumb, the sun-growns and the natural wrappers and Maduro all oily wrappers, they go definitely longer than a Connecticut. Up to a decade, I don't think C is a problem. I've had cigars that people have put in their humidors for up to 30 years, and they've been a pleasure, particularly with the darker wrappers such as Maduro, Habano. So, well, I call them natural and a more oily, robust type. And the interesting one is the broadleaf Connecticut. I think that ages really well. It's a very not sort of refined type of wrapper. It's very like, it's definitely not fine. You can see it's a bit toothy. It's a bit rough on the edges, but it ages so well. So I think Damo said also that I think mixing them up is also a very, very good option. You got to mix them up together, and they turn out to be fine. Couple of things, Stu, about what you said.
Yeah.
The Tupperware, if it's the one with the gasket, with seals, with the rubber.
And it's got the clips on the side.
Yeah, but as long as it has a rubber to it, it's fine. And I think what usually draws out humidity is the heat component. It's also the heat component. Too hot or too cold, it would impact it. If the temperature stays constant, if you temperature control, it wouldn't. And secondly, Bevita packs, you don't have to chuck them out. You can bring them back to life. If you have chucked them, send them to me. If you can still find them.
Oh.
Now, it was a joke. You can revive them.
The rubbish is going out.
There's a lot of videos on YouTube, people rehydrating Bevita packs. Now, there's the sensible way of doing it and the not sensible way of doing it. The not sensible way is throw them into a Tupperware container with a lid, throw a bucket load of distilled water in there, let them soak. You've got to remember to get them out within 24 to 48 hours. If you forget about them and they go for about a week, they swell up like a balloon, and they're actually ruined at that point because the membrane that the material is made with is stretched and actually allows too much humidity out of them. So the correct way of doing it is try and do one size of pack at a time. Don't try and mix the different sizes together. But let's say the ones that we've got in the Cigar Professor packs, I think they're 8-gram size. If they're hard like cardboard and you've got, say, 10 of them, put them in and they're all dry and stiff, put 10 of them in there. They're 8 grams each, which means they hold 8 grams of water, which is 8 mils. You got 10 of them, that's 80 mils. So throw them in, put 80 mils of water in there, put the lid on them, and it usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks for me personally, I find, for them to equal out and absorb. Some will absorb more, some will absorb less, but if you let them sit in that environment, because Boveda not only give off humidity, but they also absorb excess humidity as well. And you leave them for a few weeks, and then with that amount, if you measure the water going in like that, you'll never overcharge them. One thing you have to be careful of is I have discovered with the Boveda packs that I use to store with Cubans, when I try to rehydrate them, not always, but about 1 out of every 3 times, I'll end up having mold grow on those packs. Get mold on the packs, just throw them out. So my general rule of thumb is Cubans, I throw the Boveda packs out and put new ones in. But for the New World cigar, rehydrating, it's not a problem.
Wow. Wish I'd have known that last week.
There you go, Omar. Simon's donate your a bucket load of Boveda packs.
Yeah, I'm in. Send them out, brother. Send them out. I'll pay for the express delivery. Yeah. So interesting. What he just said as well. What I find really effective to picture Boveda packs. I tried the water as well, but what I've tried was really interesting. If you put them with a damp cloth, so it's no direct interaction with the water to the Boveda pack. If you put them in a damp cloth and then clip them in the Tupperware, it's probably the most effective one. Distilled water, obviously, said.
Another way that I have done it with the Cuban ones to try, it's a much longer process, about a month, and it did work, but I still wasn't comfortable risking mold in my cigars because of it. But what you can do is you actually put the Boveda packs spread out in the bottom of a container, and you actually sit a glass of water in that container, so the water's in the glass and the vapor comes off the water into the container, and the Boveda packs will absorb it. That way you won't get mold growing on them. That's another way that I do it. Now, Dan's asked, does it need to be distilled water? It needs to be distilled or deionized water. And the reason for that is that the Boveda packs are actually made with what's known as a reverse osmosis membrane. It's a special membrane that allows osmotic exchange of moisture through the membrane. That's why it can absorb and emit the moisture. But the gel that they put inside it actually has a specific saline content in it. And what that does is that actually the concentration of saline in that gel is how they get the different humidity values. So whether it's 62, 65, 69, 72% humidity is based on just them adjusting that saline level. And if there's any impurities in the water, that will actually fight with getting proper humidification. And the other problem that can happen too is you will get some ingression of those contaminants in the water if it's in contact with those into the gel pack, and that can upset the humidity that you're getting out of it. So you might have a 65% one, and you might end up causing it to, be 3 or 4% off the target humidity because the water was contaminated and interfered with it.
Mm. What do you think about? We're saying what James was saying before, and I would say the worst thing you can do is mix 2 different types of Boveda packs. Different humidities, they don't mix. It's just a disaster in the same box or
Correct. Correct. So, and I've done this as an experiment. I actually had some Boveda packs that were for something else. I think it was actually from a calibration, or actually not for calibration. It was for initial humidification of a humidor. They actually make Boveda packs for humidifying a brand new humidor, and I think they sit at about 80. I think it's 89% from memory, or up around the 90 percentile. I used one of those to humidify my wooden one before I put any cigars in it, but it was still largely full after sitting in there for 3 or 4 weeks. And so I had some other 65s, so I actually threw the 65s in with the 89% Bevita pack, and it actually absorbed the moisture from the big one, because they can absorb, and tried to pull the moisture level down, and so they all actually swelled up and became recharged again. And I had a pack that I didn't want to use for anything else, and I didn't want to just throw it out, but this way I was able to revive some other packs that way. So that's another little trick way of doing it as well.
And then you use 65s, right, all the way through?
Yeah, look, I use 65s. The main reason being is I find in Australia summer, and particularly in Sydney with we get quite humid summers, it does keep the humidity down to around about 68, 69% in summer. And in winter, I'm comfortably sitting at around about 65. Whereas in the past, when I've had 72s, I've had my humidity go up to 75%. And that was when I was having mold issues with my Cubans as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
Stephen, great question. We had a Candela Mark Twain Riverboat, I think from memory, was a Candela that we did. That was definitely a really nice Candela cigar. One of the things I find with Candelas, if you're used to smoking Connecticut's and other dark cigars, a fresh Candela will actually taste quite grassy, quite vegetative, which is normal because of the chlorophyll that's present in the leaf. I like to age my Candelas for 6 to 12 months before smoking them. I've actually got a new one. That's the GFY from Lancero from Dumbarton Tobacco and Trust. Steve Sarker did one, and that's a Candela as well. So I haven't smoked it yet, but I'm letting it sit there and age for a while before I pull that one out and have it. What was that other? That was the Arturo Fuente 888 Candela, I think we had many years ago, wasn't it, Omar?
Yeah, we had that.
Before even started.
We had an RP as well. It kind of rings the bell. We did an RP Candela as well. It just rings a bell that we did an RP Candela, and it was pretty good. I think the hack, as you said, with Candelas, you gotta age them, man. Without aging them, they're just too green.
Yeah, so the one I was thinking of, the very first Candela I ever had was the Arturo Fuente. It was purchased just for private interest between me and Omar and some other guys. And effectively, I got them, landed them. We tried one straight away. Omar and I really didn't like it. It was just like, not our thing, not good, very vegetative, bit brash. Anyway, I stuck them in my humidor, forgot about them. I think it was a couple of years later. I thought, I'll take one over to Omar. I think I only had 2 left.
Yeah.
And we lit it up, and it was the most beautiful custody creme brulee flavor. Just that 6, 12 months of age on it just absolutely just made it this beautiful, almost milky, custody, creamy, sweet flavor to it. It was absolutely gorgeous. So
it was really gorgeous,
yeah, so I mean, look, that they would be the recommendations I've got on Candelas. By all means, you definitely want to give one a try. It's always good to know when your cigars have been manufactured. So Omar was talking about the natural and Maduro's aging a few minutes ago. The one that we shared on Saturday, that was a Perdomo ESV sun-grown, and it was absolutely beautiful. Now, I'd been aging that for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. When I purchased it, I think it was already about 12 to 18 months old. So, a cigar that was 9 pushing 10 years. And it was beautiful. Like, you definitely have that cigar again without even thinking about it.
And the interesting thing was, it had a spice, and the spice turned into sweet. it was a much sweeter spice. From the first time
Yes.
we had it, after a few years to now,
Yeah.
it's definitely much sweeter.
The spice that we had it when we had it first time around from memory, it was definitely like a nice bold ginger snap biscuit. You know, a lot of bold baked spice notes in there, like obviously ginger, cinnamon, you know, maybe even a bit of an allspice note to it. But when this one had died down, the spices were a lot more softer and muted, sort of. You know, all those spices are still in things like fruit cakes and puddings and things like that, but they're not quite as bold. They're nice and subtle as the background, and that's definitely what the aging had done to it. But
Yes.
what about a cigar update from you guys? How are your cigars going?
I'm almost done.
Pretty,
But
been
which
pretty
you gotta
consistent.
Well, I reckon by the time we're finished with this, we probably would have pushed about an hour out of this cigar. So it's just interesting to see that Davidoff called this a 20-minute stick, but you know, I think you'd really have to be drawing hard on this thing to get this done in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think if you smoke normally, and I think you hit 45 with it, no problems. Because we have been talking and whatnot, but yeah, I think you go 40, no problems.
Yeah. Yeah, those
Simon.
XPs, Simon, were absolutely incredible. Interestingly enough, Perdomo haven't said that they're discontinued. They've just said that they're out of production. So my hope is that some point in the future they do find sufficient tobacco. I also believe that part of the process of making those ESVs was it wasn't just the best tobacco, but it was the best of the best tobacco. They double sorted the tobacco to take the top, 1%, 5% of the best tobacco that was already sorted for their more premium cigars. And also they'd actually allowed it to have a certain amount of age on the leaf before the cigars were even rolled. I think it was, I think they had about, I think it was like three, somewhere between 3 to 6 years of age on those leaves before they even rolled the cigars. And then they'd age the cigars again for another 12 to 18 months before they released them. So with that amount of age on them, you obviously want to have your best tobacco. And one of the problems Perdomo's been having is actually, having enough quality tobacco to be able to do that, but also trying to keep up with demand on their premium, not premium, on their main bread and butter lines that they're doing, like the 10th anniversary and the 20th anniversary. I did hear the other day that the 10th anniversary champagne Connecticut's that they produce 1 million cigars a year and still don't make enough to satisfy the market. They still sell out every year of those cigars. And that's just one cigar in their entire range.
Yeah.
Got one more question, just in case viewers are interested. Getting back to the humidor side of things, there's two different types of at least cooling. I'm not sure about the heating, but you've got the compressor refrigeration style, and then you've got the bimetal reverse polarity that heat and cool. Is there a preferred one out of those that would
look? All of the high end guys, these guys that will have a 1,000, 2,000 cigar humidor. A lot of the shops that have high end cigar humidors like that, I've noticed that they're all exclusively the compressed ones, whereas it's the more the bottom end of the range is the thermoelectrics. Not having had them myself, I can't really speak from any personal experience other than what I observe other people in the industry doing.
Okay.
I think that when you go to the compressor, it's usually the bigger operation, and I think there's a lot more things can go wrong with it as well. I think maintenance is challenging too from the bird. Also, I'm quite certain that the 5K mark is usually comes down to about 1.5 usually. And if you go directly to a Chinese manufacturer who do it, they will gladly send it to you within that range. So if you go back to the manufacturer, I think he spends a custom, like he said, I want this size, this panel there. He's building a mansion. Obviously, he's a rich man, and I think it cost him that 2K, like even for what he wanted exactly. So I think the 5K is a bit of, yeah.
The one thing I will say that my experience from not in humidors, but as refrigeration is concerned, or even just heating is concerned, the energy coefficient of a solid state thermoelectric heating cooling uses considerable more energy than a compressor. The most compressors are actually able to return more heating capacity than the energy they consume. So like an air conditioner, you might have an 8.5 kilowatt air conditioner. It's not actually drawing 8.5 kilowatts of power. It's more likely drawing maybe around about 2 to 3 kilowatts of power, but it's capable of putting out the equivalent of 8.5 kilowatts of cooling or heating. Because what you're doing is you're actually absorbing or transferring heat from outside to inside. And so basically it's really just it's a heat pump. It's actually moving heat from one location to the other, and the energy being consumed is actually just pushing the liquid that's either absorbing or releasing the heat. But with a thermoelectric device, the way that it actually works is it actually has to consume, it's inefficient, so it actually has to consume more energy than the actual amount of heating or cooling that it produces in that environment, because it's not actually physically transporting the heat away to the same capacity as what the heat pump ones do. So,
yeah.
Now I'm starting to get a little bit of an uneven burn towards right down to the nub. You can see it just goes up on one side and down on the other.
Yeah, I just put my one down. Gonna hold it anymore.
I spiked it.
Yeah.
I'm tied up.
Look, I'm not sure what the rules are with importing a device like that. But I know there are a lot of rules related to importing refrigerators and air compressors, air conditioners and stuff like that into the country. They've got to be, approved, and you've got to be licensed and all this sort of crap. So I don't know whether when it comes through customs, whether there'll be any issues. I know people have even imported cars and they haven't been allowed to bring the car into the country because the air conditioning unit in it's not certified or compliant within Australia. So they've actually had to have had it degassed, then go to a refrigeration people and have the vehicle regassed again, just to bring in a used car into the country.
Mm.
There's some there.
Simon seems to know a bit about this stuff, so maybe Simon can chime in on if he knows anything about that.
Yeah, there's some around the $700-800 mark, around the 400 count. They look like a little fridge. They've got the nitro or nitrogen or whatever it is in between the two glasses at the front, and it's UV protected, and they use UV-free lights and stuff on the inside. I think they use the thermal bimetal system for their heating and cooling. So I was sort of wondering whether or not something like that would be just as good, because I have big fluctuating temperatures here. It's either too cold or too hot.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Topher discovered the hard way was that his garage, the swing of temperature in his garage was way too wild. For me, I keep all the cigars that I personally have in my bedroom. And the reason for that is my bedroom's the south side of the house on the eastern side. So I get a little bit of morning sun, but not a lot due to the trees and also the awning on the house. And that room on a hot summer's day is the coolest in the house. It's also the coolest in winter, but it doesn't get anywhere near as cold as what a garage would get as well. So it's the coolest indoor room of the house, and it's the most temperature stable room in the house as well. One of the other things is too that with my wife's health conditions, heat, particularly in summer, affects her. So we have air conditioning in that room, and basically we have the aircon set at 23 degrees, and for all of summer at night time, that room's kept at that temperature. And it just really seems to be I mean, in winter, during the daytime, that room would probably drop down to maybe 19, 20 degrees. But with the thickness of the wood and all the insulation that's in my humidors, I don't seem to get those wild changes through the day within the humidor itself. So.
So, Dames, what's the next cigar?
I read something about the 70-70 rule. Obviously, it's US.
Yep.
So 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 70% humidity. We tend to talk roughly around the 60 to 65 here, don't we?
We do, and my experience has been in summer, the 65 packs usually get me to 69 degrees with our warmer weather in summer in Sydney. Obviously, different areas of Australia, it's going to be different. But the reason you want the 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 70% relative humidity, if you exceed those levels, that's the environment in which tobacco beetle will actually hatch. And so the reason for the 70-70 rule is to actually prevent tobacco beetle hatching and destroying your cigar collection, which is one of the reasons you want to keep your cigars in cellophane, because they generally don't. They might chew through the cellophane to get out of one cigar, but I've not yet seen them chew through cellophane to get into the next. So you can usually contain your outbreak of tobacco beetle quite easily if all your cigars are still kept in their cellophane.
Interesting.
So last cigar, because I'm almost out of this cigar, we've had some big, long cigars in our packs gone by, and I thought, well, I'm getting quite used to having Churchills. So I have the Oliva Master Series 333 blend in a Churchill.
Ooh.
So it is a bold cigar, but at the same time, I have been aging these as well. And I think that with the age that we've put on them and the fact that it's a nice size stick, I think that was a definite choice to put in this next pack. So next pack, we've got the Xeno Platinum Scepter in a Robusto, the CO BX3 in a Toro, and the Oliva Master Series 3 blend in a Churchill. So that will be the next pack.
Looks like a nice pack.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some really good, nice long smokes.
Both will like the Oliva.
The Oliva one, I reckon, I'm hoping for a good hour 30, hour 40 out of that one. So we'll see what we get out of it. But I reckon that's an achievable smoke on a darker cigar and it's a box pressed as well. So I think that should be something that we'll thoroughly enjoy. I just got to work out what order we're going to smoke those in. Do we start small and go big, or I don't know? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that idea.
I like that idea too.
That'll take us to May, won't it?
Yeah.
So March, April, May, correct. Yep. Yes, they do sneak up on you, Simon. I tell you what, I got to the show, the start of the show, sat down making sure I had everything here, and then I went, oh my goodness, this is the last pack. I better run and pull out the sticks for the next pack so everybody knows what's in it. Simon's had the MB3. What's your feedback on that one, Simon? What's your take on that particular one?
BX5, you haven't had it. I haven't had it either.
This is actually starting to get a bit mushy now because I'm actually starting to smoke into the taper of the cigar. I think there's probably only 1 or 2 puffs left in this one for me. Dan wants to know about the in-person herf. Well, April is probably looking likely time frame. March was originally when we were looking at it, but unfortunately for me, my wife's business is relocating warehouse facilities that we actually currently run the business out of in the next week and a half to 2 weeks. And then a week or two after that, the warehouse that we're in prior to that, we're still running some of our business out. We're actually moving out of that as well. So I've got 2 business warehouse moves in the next month. So March is probably not going to work for me, but possibly April is something that we're able to work towards. But we'll definitely discuss that at the next show in March and have a bit more talk with all involved and work out where it is. So that means we'll be going down to Albury on the Albury Victoria New South Wales border, and we'll have to see if people are interested in travelling for that. I'm confident, Stu, you would be willing to do that one.
Yep.
Daniel's
absolutely.
there.
Try and get a deer, put it on the spit.
That would be incredible. Can I put my preferences in? I like a young female chittle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's of all the deer I've had. The deer I like the most is. I
don't know that we got chittles down here, do we? I might have to come up there. Yeah, I'll have to find out where they are. We get mainly Samba and
Rooster.
Yeah, sorry, Samba and the other one can't come to me right now. Fellow. That's mainly what we got around here.
Lever. So he says he has them in Toro size. So it'll be interesting to do Simon's input on that one, so that he can tell us how the Churchill compares to the Toro when we do that. I'm going to put this down now because I've literally lost the ability to hold it and smoke it. So that was a great cigar. I enjoyed that. It was an effortless smoke. Didn't have to do much other than just sit back and enjoy that cigar. Mm. So, what's that? Daniel says, okay. Yep, okay. So if we come down, apparently Omar has to bring his infamous organic meatballs.
I think I have a feeling that they want my balls.
You're saying organ?
Yeah.
Actually, the
is an organ.
If you do get a deer, Stu, for the in-person herf, when that ends up occurring, save the heart, because deer heart just sauteed in a bit of butter, diced up and sauteed in butter on a fry pan. Absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
So, and Omar would definitely be down for that one.
Sounds like a mission.
So, anyway, once again, thank you everybody for joining us. Stu, thanks for standing in for Topher. It actually ended up being a much more enjoyable show tonight. Maybe we can make sure it's not available next month and have you come on the show instead as well. So,
oh, wow.
If you're talking to him,
thank you very much. And I'll put him in my boot so as that he can't get out.
Look, it's much
thanks for
more
having me on.
conducive. We've all
Appreciate it.
got beards, so I think there's a much more harmonious
I know.
look to the
We're all
show. We've all
men.
got beards. I know. That's right.
I give you a little tip, Stu. I got a hot tip for you.
Yep.
You said he won't get out. There's a way that he would never get out. Just knock him on the head. He doesn't have to be alive.
Of course.
Who said he's been alive when he's been on the show anyway?
Yeah.
I got to admit we've had less of a slinging match this time, and we've been able to talk more about cigars.
Yeah, I know. So much better. Yeah, breeze.
And been able to answer some great questions that have come in from our viewers. And this is what the Cigar Professor's about. There are no silly questions. We're all on a learning path. And look, even though I haven't been able to answer questions from personal experience, I can share what I've seen, what I've observed. Omar's able to tell us what he's seen when he's travelled the world, and that's what the whole concept of being in the cigar community is about. It's about us sharing our knowledge with one another, so you can learn new things, try new things, and figure things out for yourself to work out what works for you. And we're all different. We all have different tastes. We all live in different parts of the world, different altitudes that we live at. Some are inland, some are near the coast. That all affects how we experience our cigar smoking situation. So it's about sharing that information and enjoying the discovery journey of trying to figure out what works best for you.
Right.
So thank you, Simon.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a wrap for this show. And look, I'm going to say that was probably about an hour 10 on that cigar, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but about an hour 10.
We did that good.
Just an interesting thing to see when you see the smoking time on a website advertising cigars, or even what the manufacturer says. It's not necessarily right. It all comes down to the size of the cigar and how you smoke brings down to what the final time is. But anyway, keep an eye on your emails. Sometime in the next week, everybody should be getting the emails for the next pack. They will go out, and I will make sure that we try and get those cigars shipped in about 2 to 3 weeks' time, hopefully before I pack up the factory and relocate, because I hate to be having to dig through boxes everywhere trying to find them. So that will be the best way of doing it. But other than that, we will see you all again the last Wednesday of next month. And until then, stay smoky.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.